Morning.
Gatavach Shua Tov. We are learning Mishna Gittin, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishna Beis, Mishna 2. Nichtev Bayoim v'nechtam balayla. If, let's say, the get was written by day and signed, Nichtev Bayoim v'nechtam bayoim. It was written by day and it was signed by day, balayla v'nechtam balayla, or it was written by night and it was signed at night, balayla v'nechtam bayoim. If it was written at night and signed by day, kosher. In all these cases, the get is kosher. Now, we're going to, basically, the idea here is that a get needs a date. Okay? And besides needing a date, you don't want to have the writing of the get, which includes a date, and the signing of the get on a different day. Because it comes out then that the get only becomes a active a kosher get after the signing, and the way it's stated, it would seem like it was already was acting, already was doing its thing from the day before. But in all these cases, you don't have that. In all these cases here, you have where they were both written and signed the same day or the same night, or it was signed by night, it was written by night and signed by day. We know that the day starts with the night. And since daytime follows nighttime in a day, if it's written by night and signed by day, it's kosher. However, bayoim v'nechtam balayla pasal, were it to be written by day and signed by night, which means it's being signed on the following day, then the halacha is pasal, then the get is invalid. Because it comes out that the signing of the get happened the next day, which is when the get really became a active get, and assumed, as we will see, that it was given assumed. The assumption is it was given the same day as the date, and really wasn't, because it wasn't even a kosher get until the next day. So therefore, in the last case, when it was written by day and signed by night, it's going to be invalid. Okay, so let's go through this. Now, so let's read here from the bottom. And that is going on when we say the get is kosher. Under Torah law, the day follows the night. A day begins at nightfall, continues until nightfall on the following day. Right?
No.
Okay. Therefore, a get written at night and signed the next day is considered to have been written and signed on the same day. Okay? Now, although she's not actually divorced until the get is handed to her, right? You could sign a get, but she's not divorced just because you signed a get. The get has to come to her hand. She has to receive it. So although she is not actually divorced until the get is handed to her, we assume that the get was given to her on the day it was signed. This is because a man generally does not have witnesses sign a get until he's ready to use it. Thus, the date written on these gittin is accurate. Meaning that, as we're going to see, the issue is going to be not so much as, when the get has a date on it before the get became a valid get, a valid bill of divorce. The issue is going to be is that there's an assumption made that the get was even given on the day that it was written. Okay, and that's going to be the issue. Now that's the point that we're saying right now. The point is, we understand that just because you signed the get doesn't mean she was divorced. She has to be divorced when she gets it. However, the point of the Mishnah is that there's an assumption that the get was given on the day it was written, because, as they bring down from the Gemara, a man generally does not have witnesses sign a get until he's ready to use it. Not going to do it in advance, typically. Okay? Now, therefore, in this case, it comes out that it wasn't exactly that way. I mean, it comes out that it was that way. He signed it when he was going to use it. The problem is that the date in it could be an earlier date, and that's a problem. Because the earlier date would imply that she was divorced from then, but she really wasn't until the get was signed and given over the next day. So that's the issue here. But the point here is that although the focus is on being written by day and being signed by night, the focus is not just on how the get became a valid get. The point is that when it becomes that valid get, when it's signed, the assumption is that's when it's given. And therefore, if the date is not the right date, that means we're assuming the get was given on a day that it really wasn't. Now, we have to still figure out what the problem with that is. Now, so we had the first opinion that said that in the situation where it was written by day and signed by night, it's puzzle, it's no good. What's the issue? What's the problem? So here's the issue. According to the Tanna Kama, the reason a get has to be dated, meaning why does a get have to be dated in the first place? Why do you need a date for it? Why? Why would you need a date? And the answer that's given is the following. It's to prevent the following deception. If someone married his relative, for example, his niece, a person can marry his niece, nothing wrong with that, and she commits adultery, he might take pity on her and try to spare her from punishment. He could do so by giving her an undated get, so she could then claim that she was already divorced at the time she acted sinfully. That's what happened. That's what could happen if you don't have a get. When you don't have a get, she may have committed adultery, and she really did because she was married, but she gets a get from her uncle who's trying to have mercy on her. There's no date on it, and she says, "Oh, I was divorced before that," which isn't true. So to prevent this, the rabbis required every get to be dated. It's got to have a date, right? By having a date, we know exactly when when she was divorced or not. For the same reason, the rabbis not allow a get to be dated before the day on which it is signed. Okay, that's why you need a date. Our Mishna is talking about it's dated earlier than it was given. So what's wrong with that? So for the same reason, the rabbis do not allow a get to be dated before the day on which it is signed, since if the wife committed adultery between the dating and the signing, she can use such a get to escape punishment. Meaning, if the get is early, right, and when did she commit? And so it was signed, right? It was dated before it was actually given, and she comes forth and she says. And the story was that she committed adultery in between those two times. Meaning she committed adultery after the time that the get is signed, but it was before the get was given. So if the date is going to be earlier, she's going to be able to pull off the same deception. She's going to say, look, according to the date, look at the date. I was divorced earlier than the act. I didn't do anything, so I can't be punished. But in truth, it's not that way because she wasn't divorced until she actually got the get, which would have happened after it being signed. So therefore, the same reason as to why you have to have a time written in the get is the reason is the same reason, just kind of narrowed in scope of the story, why it can't be earlier dated. So therefore, the Tanna Kama said that if you signed one during the day and it's signed by night, which is the following day, it's going to be invalid because it's dated early than it actually was given. Okay? That is the Tanna Kama. Now we have Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon Machshir. Reb Shimon says that this get where it was written by day and it was signed by night is kosher. So Reb Shimon Oimer, because Reb Shimon said, Kol Gittin shenichtavu b'yom v'nechtavu b'layla, all documents written by day and signed by night, which means again the date is earlier than it was actually signed. Pesulin, they are invalid. Chutz migitay noshim, other than a bill of divorce for a woman. Everything else can't have an earlier date, but a bill of divorce could have an earlier date. Why is that? Okay, now we got to go into another explanation. Reb Shimon is going to tell us that the reason for dating a get, meaning a bill of divorce for a woman, is a different reason than said before. It has nothing to do with her committing adultery. To go ahead and say, according to Reb Shimon, to say that the whole reason for instituting a date is because of this case of adultery, very uncommon kind of situation, that wouldn't be the reason behind it. So Reb Shimon disagrees with the previous Tana. Rather, a date is required in order to stop the husband from selling the crops of his wife's fields after divorcing her and then claiming that he did so before the divorce took effect. Now, but that means like this. A husband, if a woman brings property, let's say she brings real estate, she brings property, she brings a field into the marriage. So the halacha is that the field itself belongs to her, while the produce belongs to him. and he can go in and sell it. If he divorces her, then he can't sell it anymore. Can't sell it anymore. It's not it.
It's harvested.
It's her. One second. Wait a second. I guess so. But the point is, yeah, I would assume that's so. That whatever the fruits already, once he divorces her, he has no more rights to the fruits. Now, if there is no date on the get, right? So even after they're divorced, he'll keep selling the fruits. And he'll say, you know why? I sold this before the divorce. But it wasn't true. So therefore, the Chachamim said, what do you got to do? You have to put a date on the get. So that he can't go selling off her stuff, right? Claiming that he did it when they were still married, and in the truth she really isn't. So basically, she shows the time, the sale took place at a certain time. She brings the get. The get says they were divorced beforehand, and she can go and get her stuff back. So that's the reason why the Chachamim said a bill of divorce should have a time in it. Okay? Now, what's interesting is, so now what happens though if the get is dated earlier than the signing, or dated earlier than the giving, right? That means that according to the time in the get, according to what the get says, they were divorced earlier than they were, which means he still had more time to sell those fruits because they really weren't divorced. Okay? So the issue is not by an early get the problem that he's going to be doing something wrong. You know what the problem is going to be? She's going to do something wrong. She's going to go ahead and say, look, according to this get, you weren't able to sell these fruits because you sold these fruits after we're divorced, according to the way the get says. So that's why it can't be early. Because if it's going to be early, then she's going to abuse it, and she's going to say that he couldn't sell the stuff when he still really could. And therefore, that's the reason why the halacha is that that could be a potential problem, right? That could be a problem. So the point according to Rabbi Shimon is, Rabbi Shimon says in our case that the get that was written early is kosher. Why? Why? Maybe she's gonna say he had no right to go ahead and sell when he still had a right to sell. So Rabbi Shimon answers that the rule is that once you decide to divorce your wife, you have no more rights of the fruits of her field, even before you actually divorce her. Once you're deciding to divorce her, you lose your rights in the fruits of the field. No, he wrote the get, right?
Yeah.
That means he wants to divorce her. So already from the time that the get is written, he has no more rights to go ahead and sell the fruit.
Even though she didn't have it.
Even though she didn't actually receive the get and she wasn't actually divorced yet, but the halacha according to Rabbi Shimon is that once you decide that you're going to divorce her, then you don't have no more rights in the fruit. So therefore,
But you could be decide now and then write the get later.
well, that's a separate issue. But right now, as far as we know, once he wrote it, we know that he's for sure divorcing her, and he's already lost his rights in the fruits, and therefore he didn't have a right to sell it from the time of when the get was written, and therefore there's no problem anymore. Therefore, according to him, of what's going to happen by a get for a woman. If you're talking about now Reb Shimon, so we know why since Reb Shimon has a different reason as to why he says the sages instituted a date for a get, and according to his reasoning, which is because again he's going to be it's a question of the rights of selling the fruits. Well, in the case where the get is earlier, there's no problem because he didn't have a right to sell it then anyway. Okay. However, this is not going to be true when it comes to other documents. Let's say other documents that are involving a loan, a gift, a sale. In that situation, I shouldn't say that. If you're dealing with a bill of, if you're talking about a bill of sale, documents recording a gift, or loan documents, all these, if they have an early time to it, are not going to be kosher. All right, so we're gonna finish this up tomorrow. But right now, the point we have right now at least understanding as to why Reb Shimon validates the get that has an early time when it was signed by day. It was written by day and signed by night. All right, we'll finish it up tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Would there be any value
As
in
soon as